Ever feel like your brain's just overloaded? Like a browser with way too many tabs open?
Totally.
Yeah, me too. But I still find myself like craving input,
Hmm.
wanting to learn new things,
Right.
which is perfect because in this deep dive, we're really focusing on that desire to learn. We're diving into an episode of the Book Talk podcast. They had a super interesting discussion about why reading still matters, even now when everyone's crazy busy.
It's amazing how reading can cut through all that noise we were just talking about.
Yes.
It's like a direct line to somebody else's thoughts and experiences.
It's so true. And Lisa and Mark, the Book Talk hosts, they said something that really stuck with me.
Okay.
They were talking about how picking up a book, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, it's like you instantly unlock all this knowledge, these perspectives that you wouldn't encounter otherwise.
Exactly.
Mm.
It's like stepping into someone else's shoes, right?
Yeah.
Someone from a completely different background, time period, totally different walk of life. And through their experiences, through their words, you start to see the world through their eyes.
It's wild. It's like Mark said on podcast, you could be reading like a diary of someone who lived hundreds of years ago,
Mm-hmm.
or like a sci-fi book, thousands of years in the future.
Yeah, it really just opens up your world, doesn't it?
Totally.
It's that quote, the more that you read, the more things you'll know.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds so simple, but it's so true.
It is. Okay, but I do have a question. What about the more practical side of things?
Okay, yeah.
Like, I get that knowledge is power, but how does knowing all this stuff from reading actually help us in our own lives?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. Lisa on the podcast, she actually described fiction as an empathy machine.
Hmm.
And there's actually research that backs that up.
Really?
Yeah, studies have shown that reading fiction can actually make you better at understanding other people
Oh, wow.
and empathizing with them in the real world.
So it's not just about escaping into a good story. It's like building up your emotional intelligence muscles.
Exactly, because
Yeah.
you're putting yourself in those characters' shoes, you're living their experiences, and that's like practice.
Right.
Practice empathy in a safe space,
Yeah.
which then can lead to better relationships,
Mm.
being more aware of other people, and just having more compassion in general.
More empathy. I'm here for it. But it's funny. I always thought of reading as this like really solitary thing. Almost like you're hitting pause on real life. But Lisa and Mark made this point about how reading can actually make you like better at real life.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's not just taking in information.
Yeah.
It's like a workout for your brain.
Okay.
Every time you read, you're strengthening those cognitive muscles,
Oh, okay.
improving your memory, your
Mhm.
focus, even your ability to problem solve.
So you're saying like if I read more, I'll actually be better at making decisions or like remembering where I put my keys.
Yes. There's
Well-
all this research coming out about it,
Hmm.
about the cognitive benefits.
Wow.
Like one study found that people who read regularly have better working memory, which you need for everything, really.
That's so cool. It
Yeah.
makes sense though, right?
It does.
Because when you're reading, you're taking in new information, you're making connections in your brain, you're remembering who's who, what happened.
Exactly. It's like instead of going to the gym and lifting weights, you go to the library, you pick up a book.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so reading makes you more empathetic, it makes your brain sharper. But what about just the joy of getting lost in a good book?
Oh, absolutely. It's essential. And Lisa and Mark talked about that too, about how reading can be a huge stress reliever.
Oh, yeah.
Just diving into a story and letting everything else go.
Yes, some nights that's all I want to do. Just get in bed with a good book and forget about the rest of the world.
Right. It's like hitting the reset button for your mind.
Yeah.
And you know what's cool? Those mental breaks, they actually can boost your creativity in the long run.
Really? So you're saying by like giving your brain a break from reality,
Yeah.
you're making room for new ideas.
Exactly. It's like opening up new pathways in your brain because you're seeing different perspectives, different thought processes, how other people write.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that, it can lead to new ideas and creative breakthroughs in your own life, like cross-training for your imagination.
I love that. Cross-training for your imagination.
Yeah.
This is why we read, right? It's amazing how something so simple can have that big of impact on your brain, on how you feel, on your creativity. It makes you realize how powerful words can be,
Yeah.
And towards the end of the Book Talk episode, Lisa and Mark touched on something, and I think this is really important if we're going to understand why reading matters.
Okay.
They said it's not just about the words on the page, it's about what those words do to you, the inspiration they spark.
It's true. It's like a connection, right?
Yeah.
Connecting with the author's ideas, connecting with what the characters are going through.
Yeah.
And then you start to connect it back to your own life. And that's like where the real magic is.
Totally. I've had those reading experiences where it's like the book just knew what I needed to hear at that exact moment.
Right. Like it was meant for you.
Yeah.
And a good book, fiction or nonfiction, it can really give you comfort,
Yeah.
a guidance, or even just a new way of looking at things when you need it most.
It's like having a really insightful friend, right?
Mhm.
Someone who kind of challenges you, pushes you to think differently. And it made me think of what you were saying earlier about man's search for meaning.
Oh, yeah.
That book that really had a big impact on you.
Yeah, it really has stuck with me all these years. I mean, obviously, Viktor Frankl's experiences in the concentration camps were as horrific, but it's his ability to still find meaning in all of that. That's
Yeah.
what makes it so powerful.
Wow. It sounds like a book that could really help people, especially if they're going through tough times.
Oh, absolutely. It reminds you that no matter what's happening, you always have the power to choose how you react, how you find purpose,
Mm.
even in those dark moments.
I think I'm going to have to add that one to my list.
You should.
So, we've talked about a lot of great stuff today about the power of reading, all these different benefits. But if you could only recommend one book to someone who's maybe feeling a little lost in their own life, what would you choose?
Oh, man. Only one.
Uh,
That's tough. There's so many good ones. You know what? I think I'd go with The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Have you read that one?
I haven't, but I know it's really popular.
Yeah, it's about following your dreams.
Yeah.
Really listening to your gut and trusting that things will work out, even when life throws you curveballs, which it always does.
I love that. It sounds like a really uplifting, positive read.
It is.
So I think Lisa and Mark from Book Talk were right. Reading really can change your life. It stretches your mind, feeds your soul, and it reminds us that we're not alone.
100%.
Yeah.
And you know what? Even if someone doesn't think of themselves as a big reader, I really believe there's a book out there for everyone.
So true.
It just takes finding the right one.
Exactly. Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive, but hopefully this has inspired you to carve out a little time for reading, even if it's just a few pages a day. You never know what you might discover.